members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Zimbabwe stands today at a defining constitutional moment. Since 10 February 2026, when Cabinet approved Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3, something deeply troubling has taken place in our country. No Zimbabwean, whether acting through civic organizations, political organizations, churches, labor bodies, student movements, or simply as individual citizens, has been allowed to congregate and to debate this bill. Not in a hotel conference room, not in a town hall, not in private offices, not even under a tree. The police have effectively prevented citizens from exercising their entrenched constitutional rights to assemble and express themselves. Across the country, the ruling party ZANU-PF has been allowed free rein to travel, debating the same bill with its members, whilst other Zimbabweans are denied the opportunity to discuss it. The DCP, like other institutions, has been barred from holding meetings in Bulawayo and Harare. Only recently, we had scheduled a provincial constitutional advocacy meeting in Warren Park. That meeting too could not proceed. The police said ZANU-PF had booked the same venue. We have heard this before, many times. It has become part of the playbook of this regime. On the 4th of March 2026, I wrote to the Commissioner General of Police expressing concern over this matter and requesting an urgent meeting. I also wrote to the Speaker of Parliament and the President of the Senate, imploring them to ensure that state institutions facilitate public debate during this constitutionally mandated 90-day consultation period. To date, I have not been favored with the courtesy of a response by either the police or the presiding officers of Parliament. What has become apparent is that this amendment bill belongs only to one political party. Only that party is allowed to meet and debate it. The rest of us have effectively been stripped of our citizenship and its attended constitutional rights. The question that therefore arises is simple. What options remain for citizens when their constitutional rights and freedoms are denied? This question must be answered today or tomorrow, but answered nonetheless. As the DCP, we've also written to Cabinet, to each Cabinet member, and to members of Parliament, and to the Speaker, raising concerns about the intention to amend the Constitution without returning the question of term extensions to the people through a referendum. We've made the position clear. The Constitution belongs to the people. Parliament cannot appropriate the sovereignty of the people. However, the executive has publicly rejected this position. Both the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice have publicly stated that there will be no referendum. Our position therefore remains clear. Without a referendum, there will be no legitimacy. Furthermore, we restate that amendments contained in this bill outside the term extension provisions represent democratic regression. For that reason, we reject this bill in its entirety. Fellow Zimbabweans, there's another matter that must be confronted honestly in this national discussion. The attempt to amend the Constitution through Parliament is being advanced on the basis that the ruling party claims to possess a two-thirds majority. But the nation knows, and the world knows, that this majority is deeply contested. The current composition of Parliament is the product of a series of recalls that removed genuine representatives of the people through processes widely viewed as politically manipulated and enabled through the connivance of state institutions, including the office of the Speaker. Zimbabweans know this. Even children in kindergarten know this. The International Parliamentary Union knows this. The international community knows this. No self-respecting democracy can dismantle the representation of voters in the manner that has occurred in Zimbabwe and still pretend that parliament reflects the authentic will of the electorate. The truth is simple. The ruling party does not possess a legitimate two-thirds majority in parliament. And the speaker knows this. You cannot first distort representation and then claim constitutional legitimacy for decisions taken by that distorted representation. A parliament whose composition is widely viewed as politically engineered cannot claim the moral authority to amend the supreme law of the land. For that reason, Parliament as currently constituted is not fit for the purpose of amending the Constitution. Where legitimacy is in question, sovereignty must return to its rightful home, the people of Zimbabwe. And the democratic mechanism through which the people exercise that sovereignty is clear: a national referendum. Fellow Zimbabweans, at the heart of this constitutional moment lies a simple democratic doctrine, the doctrine of periodic sovereignty. In a constitutional democracy, sovereignty does not permanently belong to those who hold office. It returns to the people at regular and predictable intervals through elections and referenda. That is why constitutions established fixed terms of office. When incumbents redesign those cycles in order to extend their stay in power, sovereignty ceases to be periodic. It becomes captive. The 2013 Constitution, adopted by Zimbabweans through referendum, was designed precisely to prevent that capture. Amendment Bill number 3, therefore, represents not a technical adjustment, but an attempt to interrupt the rhythm of democratic sovereignty. Fellow Zimbabweans, because the Constitution is not merely a domestic political instrument, but the foundation of our democratic order, the DCP has taken steps to raise these concerns through responsible and lawful international engagement. In the spirit of preventative diplomacy, we have communicated with the United Nations, the African Union, the Southern African Development Community. Our intention is not to internationalize domestic politics. Rather, it is to ensure that Zimbabwe's constitutional process remains consistent with the democratic commitments that our country has voluntarily subscribed to. Across the continent, there is growing recognition that constitutional manipulation designed to extend incumbency without the consent of the people constitutes a form of unconstitutional change of government. Zimbabwe must avoid that path. The most legitimate solution remains simple: return the question to the people through a referendum. Government argues that constitutional amendments are necessary for stability and continuity. Zimbabweans are asking a simple question: continuity of what? Continuity of economic hardship? Continuity of collapsing public services? Continuity of corruption and state capture? Students face rising fees and deteriorating conditions at university. Workers struggle with wages that cannot sustain their families. Informal traders face harassment and shrinking economic space. Artisanal miners face dangerous working conditions. Residents across towns and villages face collapsing local authority services. For these Zimbabweans, an extension of political terms is not stability. It is the continuation of hardship. The Constitution was never meant to protect the comfort of those in power. It was meant to protect the dignity and welfare of the people. It is, however, heartening, fellow Zimbabweans, that across Zimbabwe a broad consensus is emerging. Churches, students, young people, war veterans, civic organizations, and opposition political actors have all converged around one principle. The Constitution belongs to the people, and any fundamental change must return to them through a referendum. These voices come from different sectors of national life. They do not always agree on politics, but on this matter, they have converged. What is therefore increasingly clear is that the ruling party now stands not with the national consensus, but against the national grain. This is not a question of opposition versus government. It is a question of the constitution versus political convenience. In light of this emerging national consensus across Zimbabwean society, the DCP also wishes to publicly indicate its readiness to work with other democratic forces in the country in a united front to defend the Constitution and the homeland. Such a united front must be defined by numerous voices, but guided by one message and one action: that the Constitution belongs to the people, and that any fundamental alteration to it must return to the people through a national referendum. At this moment in our national history, unity around constitutional principle is more important than our individual or organizational identity. It is the people and the republic that matter. Fellow citizens, it is against this background and for this reason that the DCP today officially launches a national referendum petition under the banner 1 million voices for the Constitution. This petition represents a simple democratic principle. The Constitution belongs to the people, and any fundamental change to it must return to the people through a referendum. The petition serves three democratic purposes. First, it allows Zimbabwean citizens to express their direct voice on the question of constitutional legitimacy. Second, it sends a clear message to members of parliament that the citizens they represent demand that the Constitution be defended. Third, it transforms the constitutional debate from an elite legal discussion into a national citizens movement. When hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans demand a referendum, the question will no longer be whether a referendum is necessary. The real question will become, why is the referendum being refused? This petition will operate through three channels of citizen participation. Zimbabweans will be able to sign the petition digitally through our website, www.dcpzim.com, through WhatsApp mobilization networks, and through physical signature sheets circulating in communities across the country. This structure ensures that participation is open to every Zimbabwean, whether in cities, rural communities, universities, churches, workplaces, or markets. Youth and students will defend the Constitution that protects their future. Women will defend the Constitution to protect their rights. Workers will defend the principle that governments must periodically return to the people. Informal traders will defend their right to a government that listens to citizens and protects livelihoods. Mining communities will defend the constitutional protections that safeguard their communities. Residents' associations will defend the constitutional principles that underpin accountable local governance. And our war veterans who fought to restore the sovereignty of Zimbabwe will once again stand to ensure that sovereignty remains with the people. Zimbabweans in the diaspora will also participate in this national democratic exercise from London, Birmingham, Oxford, and Newcastle, to Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, and Cape Town, from Windhoek, Gaborone, Lusaka, and Mocha, to New York, Dallas, Chicago, and Notre Dame, and across Maitland, Newcastle, Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. Zimbabweans abroad will add their voices to the petition. Our objective is to gather 1 million votes for the Constitution. But even before that number is reached, the growing momentum of this petition will send a clear signal that Zimbabweans demand a referendum. Because when hundreds of thousands of citizens demand that their constitution be respected, the legitimacy of that demand becomes impossible to ignore. We therefore call upon every Zimbabwean, at home and in the diaspora, to sign this petition and to encourage others to do the same. This is not a petition for one organization or one political party. It is a petition for the sovereignty of the people of Zimbabwe. This petition is anchored in Section 328 of the Constitution, which Zimbabweans themselves approved through referendum in 2013. Our goal is simple: 1 million voices for the Constitution, 1 million Zimbabweans affirming that any alteration of constitutional tenure must return to the people. The petition we launched today is not merely symbolic. It represents the beginning of a broader constitutional process through which citizens assert their sovereign voice. If government denies us a national referendum, then we will organize and conduct a people's referendum. The Constitution ultimately derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed. Where formal institutions decline to return fundamental constitutional questions to the people, citizens retain the democratic right to express their collective constitutional position through lawful civic processes. That is what we describe as a people's referendum. A people's referendum does not replace the constitutional mechanism provided in Section 28. Rather, it represents a nationwide civic consultation process through which petition platforms, community constitutional dialogues, provincial civic consultation, diaspora participation, digital citizen platforms. Through these platforms, citizens will be able to record their views and participate in the national constitutional conversation through peaceful civil engagement, which is protected under Section 59 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which guarantees the right of citizens to assemble, demonstrate, and present petitions peacefully. Such engagement may take place through community meetings. These forms of participation are not acts of confrontation. They are the normal democratic means through which citizens exercise their constitutional right to participate in public affairs and present their collective position on matters affecting the governance of their country. Through these engagements, Zimbabweans will therefore be able to register their voice clearly and peacefully on Constitution Amendment Bill number 3 and on the fundamental question of whether constitutional tenure may be altered without returning to the people. In this way, the people's referendum becomes not an act of defiance against the Constitution, but an exercise of the Constitution itself. Across democratic history, it has often been through such peaceful civic consultation that nations reaffirm the simple democratic truth that the ultimate custodians of a constitution are the people themselves. For the avoidance of doubt, the DCP wishes to clarify the timing of this demand. The Constitution provides for a 90-day consultation period. That period concludes on 15 May 2026. It is therefore our considered position that immediately after the conclusion of this constitutional period and before Parliament proceeds to debate the bill, the authorities must announce the decision to hold a national referendum and or give the date on which that referendum will be conducted. This is the only sequence that respects both the constitutional consultation process and the sovereign right of the people to determine fundamental changes to their constitution. Fellow Zimbabweans, the DCP as a movement belongs to all Zimbabweans, to students, to workers, to traders, to miners, to residents, war veterans, women, youth, professionals, rich and poor. Membership of the DCP is not determined by financial capacity. It is a constitutional right. Membership contributions are voluntary solidarity contributions beginning from as low as $2 annually for students, enabling the movement to reach communities across Zimbabwe. Your solidarity contributions will make us richer. My Ezra, na my Faustina in Rusike, Manjonjo, Badamombe, and Achuhoro in Manyene. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I would like to yield the podium to representatives of various social bases in Zimbabwe. May I please call upon Honorable Gumbo. Honorable Gumbo is the head of the DCP desk on parliament and political engagement.
Fellow Zimbabweans, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, the political parties and parliamentary engagement desk of the Defend the Constitution platform is and has been engaging political actors across the country during this constitutional moment, which is very defining for our country. Our message has been very clear and consistent. The Constitution belongs to the people. It was adopted through a national referendum in 2013. And any fundamental change to it, particularly changes affecting the tenure of elected leaders or the structure of democratic governance, must return to the people through a national referendum. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not a partisan issue. It is a constitutional principle. Political competition between parties is normal in any democracy. Parties will disagree. Parties will contest ideas and contest elections. Parties will debate policy. But there is one principle that must remain above partisan competition. That is constitutional sovereignty. That, ladies and gentlemen, belongs to the people. For that reason, the Defend the Constitution platform is inviting members of all political parties across Zimbabwe, across the entire political divide. We have maintained that what we are doing is non-partisan. What we are doing remains mobilizing people towards defending the sovereignty of our Constitution. So we call upon every political player to support the national petition, which has been announced by our convener, Comrade Senator Timba. The petition is titled 1 Million Votes for the Constitution. These are the voices, 1 million voices, which will speak in defense and in protection of our Constitution. Because to defend the Constitution is, after all, to defend the motherland. This petition, ladies and gentlemen, is not about which political party governs. It is about ensuring that the rules governing our democracy remain anchored in the sovereign will of the people. We are therefore engaging opposition political parties, reform movements, smaller political formations, youth organizations, youth wings, and youth assemblies across political parties, women's leagues, women's organizations, and women's movements, and all constitutional voices within all political formations. Our appeal to political leaders across Zimbabwe is very simple. Today, it may benefit one party to change the Constitution. Tomorrow, it will harm another. Of all political parties that are in this country, we call for unity. This is what the people of Zimbabwe are demanding. While in our different layers of wisdom we organize, the people of Zimbabwe continue to raise their voice in demand of unity in that organization. This is where we are coming. The petition will be carried to every political party in our engagements. The petition will be presented to every political leader in this country, because to support that petition will be to add your voice to the 1 million voices of Zimbabweans who are saying no to the mutilation of our Constitution. I thank you very much.
Oh, may I now call upon Comrade Sonia. Comrade Sonia heads the Women and Gender Desk of the DCP.
Thank you, convener. Fellow Zimbabwean citizens, I speak today on behalf of women across Zimbabwe. Women that will recognize that the Constitution plays a central role in protecting the rights, dignity, and equality of women. The 2013 Constitution represented an important milestone for women in Zimbabwe. It strengthened the constitutional protections of gender equality and established institutions such as the Zimbabwe Gender Commission to safeguard those rights. These protections were not granted lightly. They were the result of decades of struggle by women across Zimbabwe who demanded that the Constitution recognize the equality and dignity of every citizen. For that reason, any attempt to weaken or diminish constitutional institutions that protect these rights must be approached with great caution. Women across Zimbabwe, therefore, believe strongly in a simple democratic principle. The Constitution belongs to the people, and any fundamental change to it must return to the people. This is particularly important at a time when the nation is reflecting on the role of the constitutional institutions that safeguard equality and accountability. The rights contained in the Constitution are not abstract ideas. They affect the daily lives of women across Zimbabwe. In communities, workplaces, schools, churches, and homes. Women, therefore, have a direct stake in ensuring that the constitutional protections remain strong, transparent, and accountable to the people. For that reason, women across Zimbabwe are joining the national petition launched today by the DCP, 1 million voices for the Constitution. We encourage women in communities, markets, workplaces, churches, universities across the diaspora to participate in the national civic process, because when women defend the Constitution, they are also defending the future rights and dignity of the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Union?
Thank you, convener. Fellow Zimbabweans, members of the media, I speak today on behalf of students and young people across Zimbabwe, and in solidarity with DCP, which, like many students across institutions of higher learning, recognize that the Constitution of our country is the foundation upon which our democratic future must rest. The Constitution adopted in 2013 was the result of a long national struggle for democratic reform. It was approved by Zimbabweans through a national referendum, making it a direct expression of the sovereign will of the people. For students, the Constitution is more than a legal document. It is the framework that protects our freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, academic freedom, and the rights of citizens to participate in the governance of their country. Young people have always played an important role in the defense of democratic principles in Zimbabwe, from the struggles that produced the constitutional reform to the present day. Students have consistently stood on the side of the constitutionalism and democratic accountability. For that reason, the students of Zimbabwe believe firmly that any fundamental change to the Constitution must return to the people through a national referendum. The Constitution belongs to the people. It cannot be altered in ways that affect the democratic rights of citizens without consent of those citizens. Students across universities and colleges in Zimbabwe are therefore joining citizens across the country in supporting the national petition launched by the Defend Constitution platform, 1 million voices for the Constitution. Through this petition, citizens are exercising their democratic right to insist that constitutional sovereignty must remain with the people. As students, we also wish to make it clear that we align ourselves with all democratic forces in Zimbabwe that are committed in defending the Constitution and protecting democratic gains that Zimbabweans fought hard to achieve. In that spirit, we also identify with the call made by the convener of the Defend the Constitution platform for a broad and united front of democratic forces in defense of the Constitution. Because when the Constitution is threatened, it is not a matter of one organization or one political formation alone. It becomes a responsibility for all citizens who believe in democracy, accountability, and the future of our country. Students therefore stand ready to participate peacefully and responsibly in the national civics process that protects the Constitution, rights of Zimbabweans. Because the defense of the Constitution is ultimately the defense of the future of the young people in Zimbabwe. I thank you.
I would like now to call upon Tawia. Tawia is here in his capacity as representing the youth leader of the DCP, Emmanuel Sitima, who is currently on assignment right in rural Matabele North as we speak. Tawia.
Thank you, Senator J. Timba. Fellow Zimbabweans, members of the media, I speak today on behalf of young people across Zimbabwe, students, young workers, young entrepreneurs, young farmers, and millions of young citizens whose future will be shaped by the Constitution that governs this country. For the youth of Zimbabwe, the Constitution is not an abstract legal document. It is the framework that determines our future opportunities, our freedoms, and our participation in the governance of our country. The Constitution adopted in 2013 was approved by the people through a national referendum. Young people across Zimbabwe believe strongly in a simple democratic principle. If the Constitution was given to Zimbabwe by the people, then any fundamental change to it must return to the people. This is why the youth of Zimbabwe are deeply concerned by the proposal to amend the Constitution without returning the question to citizens through a referendum. Young people are the largest demographic group in Zimbabwe. I think you all know that young people are around 65% of the population. We will live longest with the consequences of the constitutional decisions taken today. For that reason, our generation must have a voice in determining the constitutional future of our country. That voice must be exercised through democratic mechanisms provided by the Constitution itself, including the right of citizens to participate in public affairs and to express their views peacefully. Today, the youths of Zimbabwe are joining the national petition launched by the Defend the Constitution platform. 1 million voices for the Constitution. Through this petition, young people across universities, colleges, communities, and the diaspora will add their voices to the call for national referendum. We are encouraging young Zimbabweans everywhere to participate, to sign the petition, to share it with their friends and communities, to engage peacefully in defending the constitutional rights that protect our future. The Constitution must remain a document that protects the future generations, not the one that is altered without the consent of the people. We will live under it. And that is why the youth of Zimbabwe stand firm behind a simple message. The Constitution belongs to the people, and the future belongs to the youth. Thank you.
Thank you. For the last, amongst us is an elder, one of the founding fathers of our new nation. Comrade Gurira is a war veteran. He heads the War Veterans Desk of the DCP. He's also the Secretary for Information for the War Veterans Pressure Group, a core applicant to the constitutional application which was filed by Comrade Maduku in the Constitutional Court. Comrade Gurira is a master in public policy. He's the inaugural registrar of the Midland State University. During the war, Comrade Gurira and others, under the guidance of Dr. Fei Chu, ensured that our young people were educated in the camps in Mozambique. Comrade Gurira.
Fellow Zimbabweans, members of the media, I speak today on behalf of veterans of the liberation struggle and citizens who remain committed in the founding ideals of Zimbabwe. The liberation struggle was fought for a single but powerful principle, that the sovereignty of Zimbabwe must belong to the people. And that's the fundamental message that is coming from the comrades, that the liberation struggle that was waged for the simple reason of ensuring the sovereignty of the people over their affairs. The people did not end with independence. It did not end with independence. That is what we are saying. It was reaffirmed in 2013 when Zimbabweans across the country adopted the current constitution through a national referendum. That referendum represented a collective act of sovereignty by the people of Zimbabwe. For that reason, the Constitution is not merely a legal document. It is a political covenant. And that is important for us because it was mutually arrived upon by the people and the state. In other words, it is a sacred covenant as far as we are concerned. It defines the relationship between the people and the state. So when the Constitution is altered, it must therefore be done in a manner that represents the sovereign will of the people. If there are any changes that take place to the Constitution, we say it must be done with the blessing of the people. Many war veterans have spoken publicly in recent weeks, we are all aware, reminding the nation that the liberation struggle was not fought so that power could be concentrated permanently in the hands of a few, in the hands of a small ruling elite, small, selfish, greedy ruling elite. That's not what we fought for. It was fought so that power would ultimately rest with the people of Zimbabwe. Any fundamental change in the Constitution, particularly those affecting the tenure of elected leaders, they must therefore return to the people through a national referendum, and that is what we are asking for. For that reason, we support the national petition launched today by the Defend the Constitution platform, 1 million votes for the Constitution. So congratulations for that, Mr. Convener and team. We encourage citizens across Zimbabwe to sign the petition and to participate peacefully in defending the constitutional principles that safeguard our democracy, because the liberation struggle was fought so that the people would always remain the ultimate custodians of the Constitution. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The women have spoken, the students have spoken, representatives of political parties have spoken, the youth have spoken. I think the message is clear to government. People demand a national referendum, failure of which the people will organize a people's referendum and reclaim our power. Any questions? Thank you. I'll take another question. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Let me start with the last question. We are not going to let it go. As I indicated, we have acted in a civil manner by us writing letters to the respective offices, to the Commissioner General, to Parliament's presiding officer. We have done that. Our next step is now to approach the court with respect to the conduct of the police, and that is happening. Okay. And I can also safely say that some of our colleagues within the democratic movement have already taken those steps, and so are we. So we are not going to let that go. With respect to the issue of a united front, I think what is critical and what is important is that, yes, you are right and correct that people are calling for this. And for me, I think it is important that people must first of all make a public confession that they are committed to this process. Because it will then make it easier when we sit in a private boardroom and say, but you said you were a constitutionalist. let's now put pen to paper and come up with this united front. And there are various ways in which a united front can be established. The other issue that was raised by Tonyo was, what if it is ignored? Tonyo, we are exercising what in normal circumstances would be called exhausting your domestic remedies. We are exercising our democratic rights as enshrined in the Constitution that we are defending. Constitution that we are defending under Section 59, okay, gives us a right to petition. We are exercising that right. The ball is in their court, okay, as to whether they respond to that constitutional move that we are taking. We are acting constitutionally. We are expecting them to also act constitutionally. What is acting constitutionally in terms of the same constitution? The same constitution talks to the issues of accountability. That the leadership of the country must be accountable to the people. And we are coming to them. We expect them to be accountable. So the ball is in their court. But we have also said that if you fail in your own constitutional obligation, we will take ours. And in this case, ours involve a people's referendum. So if you don't give us a national referendum, we'll organize and conduct a people's referendum on our own. And I think I've defined what that would take.
Thank you, Convener. I will respond to the second part of Tonyo's question regarding Parliament. And I will respond to you and equally speak to the people of Zimbabwe about that particular issue. I'm not a lone voice. I'm not a man on his own agenda. I stand here today as a representative of a significant fraction of parliamentarians who have stood to say no to an unconstitutional constitutional amendment process. We have members of parliament who have raised their voices to demand that this process must go to the people. We have members of parliament who, albeit being obvious beneficiaries of the term extension, have said we will not abandon the agreement and the covenant we made with the people in 2023 when we went to the election. We do have, of course, some who have chosen the path of being unclear or the path of ambiguity. And this is where I want to speak to the people of Zimbabwe. You voted these members of parliament to go to Mount Upton. You voted them in 2023 to represent the will of the masses. And it is incumbent upon every member of every constituency to hold to account their member of parliament regarding this very issue. As we proceed, this petition will be taken to the constituencies by these members of parliament. If your member of parliament has not brought the petition to you, or has not brought the question of whether or not we must extend the term of office of the current president and the current parliament, it is incumbent upon you as the person who voted to go and ask your member of parliament. These members of parliament have said before, they don't live in these hotels in perpetuity. They don't live in Harare in perpetuity. They come back to the constituencies. You know where they stay. You know where they work from. And it is your right as a person who voted for an MP to go and ask, particularly on this critical and history-defining moment of the nation, where do you stand? But we do have members of parliament. And also, Tony, we are in a moment of key political discourses for our country. Hence, there is also a lot of lobbying that is happening in parliament. And you will be surprised, and I state this as an element and a statement of fact, that there are members of parliament who belong to ZANU-PF who do not subscribe to the term extension proposal. And part of my mandate, and part of my job, and part of the objectives I've been given under the Defend the Constitution platform is to engage those. Because as we have stated, we are not engaging on a partisan basis, but we are engaging on the basis of the motherland, of defending the sovereignty of our constitution. So that lobbying will be happening. We can't state the exact numbers we have at the current moment, but as we continue in this process, the voices will be coming out. The members of parliament will be engaging with their constituencies to defend this constitution. Thank you very much. I hope I have managed to respond. As we have stated, and we have done so in many of our statements, we do not believe that this is a process that must go and be defined by a parliament vote alone. Comrade Convener has stated here that there is an engineered majority in parliament, where if we allow ourselves to confine this constitutional change to parliament, we will have an engineered and illegitimate outcome. What you will hear are voices that will stand to challenge the quality or the qualitative character of the bill. You will hear them. They will debate this against this bill. They will debate against provisions which seek to take away from the gains of the 2013 Constitution, the Constitution of the people. So the numbers, when it comes to the voting process, there is already an indication that we are getting from Parliament, that they do not want to have a secret ballot kind of a vote. But the question is very simple, Tony. The Constitution requires a two-thirds. That is a very mathematical process. How do you define two-thirds? By acclamation. You can only define two-thirds by a specific count of votes in Parliament.